All right, with me today is Tim Nyblom. He's the end user business manager for higher education, physical access control at HID Global. Hi, Tim. Why don't you give me a little bit more about your role there at HID?
Sure. Thanks, David, for the time. I appreciate you reaching out. So my role is mainly focused on the end users in higher education, and that it refers to college universities across the country, whether that's private, public, two-year community colleges. And the role is to educate and inform those end users about HID Global in our physical access control or PACS business unit, anywhere from cards and readers, what's coming down the pipe with mobile, controllers such as Mercury, Vertex, Arrow, those type of things, in the HID ecosystem, and how it can, be a good fit for university campus. I've had 13 plus years experience working with an HID channel partner prior to my role here at HID. So I have a lot of contacts in the higher education space where we're able to, help them and future-proof their campus.
Great. So with that experience, what do you see as the predominant form of access control on most college and university campuses?
Unfortunately, it's still mainly mag stripe and proximity. While there has been a number of upgrades, so to speak, over the last 7 to 10 years, there's, college and universities have upgraded their infrastructure. There's a number of MyFair, iClass, DesFire. But when you look at the overall access control units on campus, some of the maybe exterior doors have been upgraded to support more secure technology, but magstripes predominantly still used everywhere else around campus when you're talking about point of sale, like vending or meals outside of campus, like a campus merchant program, those type of things. While the percentage keeps increasing for sure from the security and convenience side, magstripe and proximity are still the dominant players in the market.
Would you say that let's talk just about maybe exterior doors? Would you say that Prox is more prevalent, but most of those Prox cards have magstripe on them for all of those other cases, like vendors and vending and cafeteria?
Yes.
Library?
Yes, that is definitely accurate. I don't know of a university right now that uses complete access without a magstripe. Every single card that I've seen in my time, whether it's Prox, iClass, MyFair, DesFire, CEOS, they all still have a magstripe on their card.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now,
they're
thinking. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. That was it.
I was just gonna say, reach into the Wayback Machine. Was the majority of access control to those exterior doors magstripe at one time, and the universities upgraded to Prox? Or was it lock and key? Okay.
I would say it was lock and key and magstripe to Prox. Prox has been, we hear it a lot, especially in this industry. I mean, it's 25, 30 plus year old technology now. And, it works really well. You get within a proximity of a reader, the door opens, it looks like magic. The problem is, as everyone knows, there's just no security to that. So I think there's just been so much comfortability with basically access control providers where they've been hanging Prox readers for 25 plus years, and it became second nature. So when a school, 10, 15 years ago looked to upgrade, it wasn't even a thought. It was, okay, we'll go to Prox to get a tap, and you get a pretty cool experience. And that's kind of how, in my opinion, how it all started.
At that time, was Prox the best alternative to MagStripe?
Yeah, HID, that was the bread and butter technology back then. MyFair was used as well, but it was developed for transit, and it was used a lot overseas and in Europe. As far as HID Prox back in the day, I believe it was the number one choice and option for most campuses, and others as well.
Yeah, I would imagine most businesses I've been to, I mean, everyone I've worked with has a Prox card, the in-out, card of choice.
Yep.
So some of the questions I'll ask, I've asked them, 12 times already. And,
sure.
And it seems like an obvious question, but I'm asking it to get your perspective. So between MagStripe and Prox, what are the limitations of those two cards? And maybe give actual pros and cons. So not just limitations, but what are some of the conveniences of those also?
Well, when you talk about MagStripe and Prox, I mean, one of the cons with MagStripe, well, both of them, is there's no security, but with MagStripe card, you physically have to handle that card. So whether you're swiping it through a reader, you're using it for a financial transaction, you have to hand that card over to possibly someone, or swipe it yourself through a machine. There's cases that have been made where people say MagStripe is actually more secure than Prox, in a sense, where you can sniff a Prox card, with a $30 device you can buy off of Amazon now, where it's transmitting, the RFID numbers through the air with no security, where you don't even physically have to have the card in your hand and sniff that data, clone a card, and walk in a door for someone like that. With MagStripes too, when you're talking about readers, a lot of wear and tear. Replacement cards, you're swiping, if you're a campus, university, you're using that MagStripe everywhere. I've seen situations where schools have said, hey, my card's falling apart, where in essence, the readers are just haven't been cleaned, are not being taken care of properly, build up. Again, when you're physically touching something over and over and over again, it just wears out over time. With Prox, you don't have to do that. With Prox, it has a longer read range as well, so a lot of familiarity with, whether you're a male or female, you have it in your pocket, a purse, whatever, you can kind of throw your wallet up at the reader. It'll let you in, swing your purse up, it'll let you in, those type of things. So the convenience factor is much, is very important, or a nice feature to have from the Prox side. That answer your question?
Yeah. So and MagStripe has additional functionality as well, right? You can use it for paying for things. It's not just getting you inside buildings.
Yes, true. Yes, true. I mean, think about our credit cards, that MagStripe data, used for financial transactions, and then a university or college campus, they use closed loop systems. So you'll hear a number of different integrators in this market space, whether it's a Seaboard, Atrium, Transact, which used to be Blackboard. There's TouchNet, these are all closed loop payment systems for transaction management on university campuses. So again, dating back 15, 20 years, where these integrators started, most of that stuff was tied to financial transactions using the magstripe.
Mm-hmm. So I lost my train of thought for a second. So let's kind of fast forward to now, or maybe a few years ago. Majority of universities, let's just say that they have PACS cards and they have a magstripe on them. What are they seeing as the drivers to upgrade, or the things that are, or the reasons why they might stick with their PACS card magstripe combo?
Well, it all comes down, there's really a balance between security and convenience, and the existing infrastructure, because a lot of times it depends on that infrastructure and how difficult or expensive it would be to get a campus into the 21st century, so to speak, where they're using a more secure and convenient card or mobile technology. So there's a balance there. Using PACS, while it is convenient, there's no security. So if a campus is comfortable with, their different, it's kind of like a layered approach. If the campus is confident that they have other measures in place, whether it's cameras, security guards, those type of things, that they don't see necessarily a need to upgrade to a more secure contactless card, then that's their choice. But from what we've seen is, a lot of universities want to upgrade to a newer contactless technology, have the security in place, knowing that there's no vulnerabilities there, and having it convenience as well.
Would it be fair to say that a university would upgrade if they had, blank check?
Yes.
I guess the question I'm asking maybe is, you have PACS, it does the job. You haven't had an event yet, but is there a posture that we know this isn't secure, but we're not quite in a position where we can upgrade, but we would if we could? Please send money to, checks to security office at,
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. If there was a blank check, every school would upgrade, and would want a convenience of whether it's a new contactless card, secure contactless card, or mobile, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit, but without a doubt.
So what are some of the obstacles that they run into? Because cost certainly comes up. Because many of these universities are very have long histories, and they have many different systems set up, or different reader types, card types, stakeholders. Kind of tell me about the ecosystem that's on a campus and why an upgrade might be a challenge for security team or whomever is responsible.
Sure. So traditionally, universities are a very siloed business, or university, however you want to say it. And what I mean by that is they're so responsible for their particular business unit, so to speak, and their budgets are tied to that particular business unit. When you start talking about upgrading contactless technology on a campus, it affects many, many different stakeholders and departments across campus. And it's very difficult to get everybody on board and even understand why this should happen, how it should happen, who's leading the charge, where the money's coming from, who on the campus is responsible for it. And, at the end of the day, why this matters to the university as a whole, to the students, and to the faculty. So in my experience, from a channel partner and now working at HID, the siloed divisions of a university organization is a big holdup. Again, just trying to figure out who's in charge, where it comes from, who's going to be responsible for this. If it came from the top level down, going back to your blank check analogy, if you had a chancellor, a VP of a campus that basically said, yeah, we're not waiting, we can't afford to, we don't want to have something bad happen. We don't want somebody to clone our PACS card, walk in the door, vandalize or do something even worse. And, here's, go make it happen, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Then outside of that, it's getting everybody into a room, understanding everybody's different roles, understanding how this decision could affect their particular department and team and budget, and trying to bring everybody, under one roof.
But let's go back to the chancellor buy-in for sponsorship for a second. Do you, knowing that not every college or university is the same, nor are their leadership, are there any insights that you have into how one might go about getting sponsorships from the highest levels of a college or university?
I wish I knew that. No, I've seen, recently with the mobile stuff coming on, there's been a few instances where basically it came from a chancellor that says, we want that. We want to be able to use our mobile devices, go make it happen, so to speak, and it starts and sparks conversation. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, I'm not really sure. I don't know of a particular conference or show or, something along those lines where chancellors or VPs would all get together at universities and colleges, or, outside manufacturers or companies would be able to attend those type of things to talk about this and how to make it happen. If that was the case, I think it would be very beneficial.
How do you think they normally hear about new technologies within the access control space? Is it from their own internal security staff? Is this, and you mentioned you don't know of a conference or something like that, but what I'm getting to is there a gap between the security team or, those responsible for physical access control and the highest levels of the university? Is there a channel into them somehow? How that might work?
Well, it goes back to the way universities are structured, and every university is different. So again, going back to my channel partner days and even now with HID, it would be a lot simplified or easier if every university acted the same, had the same structure, same division, same budgets. But when you go on a campus, whether a large university, small university, the structure is so different that it's not an automatic answer on where to go. So there's universities and colleges where everything is handled under a card office. Well, at another university, card office handles the actual production of cards, but they make no decisions. Access control handles access control, and you got to go talk to them. These different areas report to different people. Again, it's just, who they report to, following up the chain. One VP might love the idea. Another VP has no idea what they're even talking about, those type of things. So there's no set structure on a campus. Everybody does it differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So setting that aside, if you were to give some bullets on best practices for getting started with the migration from, procs to COPS,
sure.
What would you do? And what I want to land on here is how even you might pitch or how you might get the team together, whatever it is that's going to pitch why this upgrade is important. Choose somebody who's like a chancer, just in case they're disconnected and you need to convince them because they hold the checkbook.
Sure. Typically you need some, like a champion or a driver of the cause that's very passionate for, that is, that wants to upgrade the campus from a security and convenience side. And one of the first steps that goes a long way towards education and getting everyone on the same page is bringing everyone to the table. And what I mean by that, we used to call it stakeholder meetings, or, really stakeholder meetings is a good term, but anyone that would be affected by this decision or would like to have input on this type of decision, bring them into a room and do it doesn't have to be a sales presentation, but more of a technical presentation on what the technology is. Terms are really important. Someone's procs might mean something totally different to another person. Mm-hmm. Understanding, the card technology itself, the security. If we change something, how does that affect my particular division on a campus? I think that's extremely helpful. Another is, if that's of interest to a university, an upgrade is doing a use case assessment. It's very difficult to know what this would cost and how easy or difficult it would be without knowing your current infrastructure. So if there's a way to find out, hey, how many readers do we have on our walls? How many readers do we have that run point of sale or a financial transaction? What's our access control system? I've been to universities where they have 7 different or more access control systems, and one department runs it and they don't communicate with the other departments. So who's the access control system? Who are their integrators? Who's the manufacturer of their hardware? All those type of things is really helpful to know as well.
Can we dig in a little bit to that scenario where you have a university? It doesn't have to be 7 different ones. Hi, baby. Can we? I have 4 kids, so I totally get it, man. Luckily, I'm out of the infant stage and almost out of diapers in my house. So getting there.
Nice.
Let's take a college or university that has multiple different access control technologies operating on one campus.
Sure.
How prevalent is that first, and then take that case scenario, that case study, and say, because I'm imagining that this is more typical. That they might have older buildings that haven't been upgraded. They've got all kinds of different departments that are managing their own things. And how do we get this sort of hairball under control?
It comes back to the education and bringing everybody together, because nobody really knows until you have those conversations and start talking about it. And there's a human element to it as well. Like, well, I don't want you stepping on my turf, so to speak, or is this new technology, is this going to eliminate my job, so to speak? So you might have that fear from people as well that don't truly understand what the benefits are, what it can do for the university. Maybe someone doesn't even care. They just they've been there for 20, 30 years and like the way things are. They're very comfortable and don't care to change. So you have those type of things outside of like technology issues and infrastructure. You also have that human element of the people that, may not want to do things as well. I think word of mouth is big though in higher ed. They want to be on the latest and greatest stuff, or they wish to be. So it gets conversation going when they hear of other schools or other neighboring schools in their particular state that may be doing something, that can kind of jumpstart a conversation or initiative to get a campus moving in the right direction.
So you would recommend that sort of cross communication between schools and maybe reach out to a school is a little bit ahead of you and see what they've done. And
yeah, and we've done that just recently here at HID. There's a couple opportunities that we're working on where we actually brought schools to visit a campus that has already kind of moved forward, so to speak, and having a day where the campus can walk them around, show them what's going on, show how the technology is, answer questions, those type of things, and get an understanding of, all right, what did this university do? How did they get to point A to point B? What were the roadblocks? What were the challenges? What was easy? Those type of things. And the peer-to-peer network, so to speak, is extremely beneficial because they see it in action. They're on a university campus every day. They know that other universities, while they might not share every single pain point, they share a lot of commonalities where, they're trying to take care of their customers, which are the students, and making it secure, convenient, cool, and really help that campus use new technology.
It seems in my discussions with some of the other subjects at the universities that this is something that they value greatly, and of those that were the farthest along, all of them seem to have done it already, whether it was at an event or something like what you talked about, where they just literally reached out to another organization, university. It sounds like that's a big priority. What's some of the feedback that you've heard for those that have come out to one of those HID days? Or is it invaluable to them? Is it because what I want to get a sense of here is it seems to me that doing this on your own isn't the smartest idea.
Yes, I would agree.
And that there's not only industry, meaning it's not just HID who's going to come out and help in the process. That there's others who've already done it and they're perfectly willing to help out. That it's a closer knit community than, say, two corporations talking about these kind of things.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And I've been in higher ed, for a long time now, and they're very unique. They do, while there's always ways to do it better or improve, but they do talk a lot. They network a lot. There's a number of different higher education conferences. The one one of the biggest ones that it's almost like friends and family. And I've been attending it for 13 plus years, is NACU, the National Association of Campus Card Users. And it will be held in Austin in April this year, in HID's headquarters backyard. It's such a great conference. Everybody communicates, everybody hangs out. They go to these different sessions. They hear and learn what a university did, what they're doing. how they did it, what approach they took, what didn't work, what did work. And that conference is extremely invaluable. They get a lot from it.
Yeah. It's come up a few times, so very good. Okay, let's sort of pivot a little bit to let's get beyond the procs and the mag stripe, and let's go into some other technologies. If you have procs now and you've got the funds to upgrade, migrate, what would you suggest a university to go to for the most secure solution? And I don't mean like, it's HID, commercial. I mean more of just in general, where are they going to?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, do you want me to pitch that as a commercial or not? But, certainly HID, but whether it's CIOS or DesFire, but the biggest thing that, the biggest topic of debate when you talk about new contactless card technology, take outside of mobile for an instance, when you're talking about just cards, especially in the last 3 to 5 years, it always comes down, or so it seems to, should we go CIOS or should we go DesFire? And it's the explanation and the technology and the education behind those areas. And it's not entirely HID support, as you know, it supports both CIOS or provides CIOS and DesFire. But there's a lot of mixed information out there, depending on where you're hearing it from other manufacturers, integrators, et cetera, on one versus the other. So sometimes there's, universities decide a direction and don't have the full details, or choose a direction for different reasons. But that, from a card technology side, it usually comes down to DesFire and CIOS. David, you there?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Is there a use case where DesFire is the way to go, and a separate use case where CIOS is the way to go, or is CIOS the better of the two and could do everything that DesFire can do?
No, there's really, DesFire is a solid option and a good technology. It depends on the infrastructure again, and then what has been told to universities by other manufacturers or other partners that they use on a campus. But DesFire and CIOS are both very secure technologies. If someone chooses DesFire, that is not, a bad selection when you're talking about from the card side. It's when you get into mobile is where there's some discussions, and is there flexibility on the DesFire side to accommodate things moving forward, or do you have to go all in with particular manufacturers? You have to do things one way. You're getting into more of who's controlling the stuff on a campus, and the integrators play a big role in that. Historically, they've controlled a lot of the decisions, and they've just kind of grown over time because they've handled the financial transactions, and okay, well, we can handle more, we can tell you what's going on, and those type of things.
So how does, let's dig into that a little bit, setting the integrator aside for a minute. Why is CIOS better? It sounds like what you're saying is that CIOS is better for those who are looking to have a mobile integrated approach.
Yeah, so with NFC, so near field communication is NXP owns DesFire. So if a school goes DesFire, every reader will have to have an chip in it, an NFC chip in it, and a card. By spec, it's 10 centimeters. So, it's never going to get the ISO spec of DesFire. The read range is never going to get faster or I shouldn't say faster, longer using NFC. When you talk about CIOS, it's chip agnostic because it's not relying on a single chip manufacturer. CIOS is a microprocessor based, basically it's a software where you can put CIOS on anything, whether that's a card, whether that's a mobile phone, whether that's a wearable like an iWatch or an Apple Watch or some other type of watch. So as choices change and technology changes in the future, all this stuff is coming along. CIOS, again, because it's not tied to a chip manufacturer like NXP, it has mobility for the future. So if something else comes down the line, CIOS, in theory, can be applied and put on to something else and work in the same ecosystem and infrastructure.
As long as it uses BLE or something like that, right?
Well, either it could be BLE, it could be NFC, the Apple Wallet program. It could be years down the line, you hear us HID talking about ultra wideband and those type of things. So, what's coming next? HID readers right now support both DesFire and CIOS, and they support whether it's BLE or NFC. So, if you have the right reader infrastructure on the wall, it gives the universities a lot of choices to choose a direction that makes sense. If they think DesFire makes sense, great. HID readers will support that. If they think CIOS is the right choice for them, great. HID readers support CIOS. So it comes down to the infrastructure and the hardware and what will it support to be able to put a university in a position where they're tied specifically to one thing and one thing only, or they have options.
Got it. How does adopting mobile impact the student experience on campus?
Well, have you ever seen a teenager not on their mobile phone, I guess, is where the world is going now. So, yeah, it really elevates it from a convenient side. They're always using their phones. They can do almost anything on their phones these days. They can obviously pay. You can put credit cards on there using Apple Pay, Samsung, Google Pay, whatever the case may be. So when you talk about a university campus, if the questions are starting to come is, well, I can do everything else with my phone. Why can't I pay for my meal on my phone? Or why do I have an ID card? Why can't I use my phone to get into my building where I can do that somewhere else? So and again, these kids, they've grown up with the technology. They're familiar with it. They use it every day. So it's like, well, why can't I? So what's the holdup? What's going on? Why can't I do this? And we're starting to see that at universities where they're going to places like the card office, even chancellors or whatever, and saying, hey, why can't we use our phones? This school's using their phones. Why can't we? Those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And again,
it's bubbling up from within this sort of.
Yeah, and the students are really the ones that are driving it, for sure.
And what does it do for them to have their credential on their phone? Besides just why can't I just use my phone? What is it actually? How do I formulate this question? I think from a security, I want to hear the security side of it too. But for a student to have his credential on his phone, what does it actually change for them versus having a card?
I guess that's all on perspective for the individual person. I mean, I have Apple Pay, I have stuff on my phone now, but if I go to a gas station, I still go and pull out my credit card and use a credit card because I'm used to it, and it's easy for me. But when you're talking about a student, if they're using their phone for everything, why do I have to carry a card? I don't want to carry a card. If I go to eat, why do I have to have my card? If I go to the gym, why do I have to have my card? I think it's all about just how they've grown up and the different perspectives. I've heard that argument about, well, what's the really difference? It's, you can make an argument that the phone actually might be slower. Again, depending on the use case and how it's provisioned and all the different stuff from the manufacturers and the integrators and how they're using phones, because there's different ways to use a mobile credential on a campus too. But, if you walked up to a line, pulled out your credit card or your phone, which one's really faster? It's just this day and age, everybody does everything on their phones.
So I guess I think what you're saying is for a student, there's no disruption for them where they see a card and having to pull a card out and going through that process. It's like a necessary disruption where by creating sort of a seamless opportunity for them, they're already probably holding their phone anyways because they just took 5 selfies with their friends, and they're just walking up there and they're in. There's the secondary. I had a thought a moment ago too that it's like telephones or the cell phone is really the most important technology device that we have, because now everything, and this one Brandon touched on a little bit too, is everything is being sort of located on our phones. Our lives are on our phones, and it's interesting to me that when the access control piece gets located on the phone, you take something that was a disruption, I hate to say it that way, but not even the most important thing to a student, not even probably in the top 10 most important things to the student, but most important to the security office, is now on the most important device. So it's almost like it becomes the most part of, piggybacked on the most important thing, which is an interesting, thought, that something that you get lost, forgot about, not worried about.
Yeah, because when you think about a card versus a phone, how many times is a student going to leave their card in their room? Oh, I forgot my card. Just print me another one. They're not going to ever leave their phone. It's tied to them. So they know when they walk out of their dorm in the morning and say they forgot their card, if they had a mobile device that was set up to use everything on a campus, they could get into any building, they could pay for any meal, get in any rec center, XYZ, and make it back to their dorm room that day. So I think it's just the way the world is changing and the expectations of students. Yeah.
What do you see it having an impact on recruiting too? Are universities saying, we're a mobile credentialed campus, or anything like that?
I've thought about this before. I think they can, or they will, or should, or can start using that. I don't know if they are, but I wouldn't blame them if they did as a recruiting tool. Like, that's just another, checkbox that they can position their university and say, hey, our university is at this point, you can use your phone everywhere. I don't see why they wouldn't. You know, at the end of the day, as a parent, you know, they're paying $40,000-$50,000 to attend the university, but to the student, that's going to look pretty cool.
Yeah. So from a security standpoint, the tether to the student piece is a big win for the security office, the security staff.
Yeah, and I mean, it depends on how you look at it there. They might think it's an even extra burden.
Mm. Are universities making a jump from sort of a traditional security office to more IT-centered security office? Because now
IT is definitely
software.
Yeah, IT is definitely coming into the play more and more because of all the new technology, where you go back to the siloed departments. You know, you had IT, you had access control, you had business office, card office, et cetera, et cetera. Because of the software that's coming, the security in the mobile and how it affects campuses, cloud and all that, IT is definitely involved in these type of projects and upgrades.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is good in a sense too, because IT typically has the larger budgets as well. So, you know, if IT's on board, I think it's actually helpful for a university that's interested in this type of stuff, because they have IT backing that this is secure. You know, we can accommodate it, we can support it, those type of things.
Mm. It's an interesting idea that you know, IT is advocate, because, you know, oftentimes we have no idea what IT is talking about when they're talking, but they go like, yeah, you really need this because, you know, we don't want to get, you know, have an incident or, you know, cybersecurity, et cetera, and everybody kind of goes, oh yeah, right, you know, that's important. I don't know what it is, but that's important. What about
and the other? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Just the other thing that I thought of on the IT side, what's helpful too from a budget or an understanding of budgets. So in HID's case, when you're talking about mobile access, you know, it's a subscription service. So these IT guys, they're used to paying all kinds of crazy prices in working with subscription, you know, whether it's Microsoft, Duo. A lot of universities use Duo for dual factor authentication, you know, those type of things. So when you start getting into mobile access and subscription-based pricing and looking at IT budgets, they're very familiar with how these approaches are, and you know, they're comfortable with these type of subscription based services. So again, another advocate on that side as well.
That's an interesting thread to run down, is, you know, as mobile's being considered, that there are as a service or subscription models that they can adopt. That I'm assuming that you know, it's not a capital expense that they're having to assume. It's, you know, because it's subscription, maybe it comes even from a different place within the IT budget if they had to.
Yeah, it's an avenue to explore that we're exploring ourselves, because there is capital depending on the infrastructure. You will have to support, or the readers and all the hardware has to be upgraded. So that's the capital expense. But from the actual mobile side, from the credentialing side, it's more, it goes back to what your point. It's not a capital expense. So can it get rolled into that IT budget or wherever?
And maybe there's more IT budget. I mean, I guess what I'm seeing is there's a spreading out of expense potential, and the potential of different departments gaining benefit from things that already exist. Like, you know, I think Brandon was talking about this, but almost I think I talked to 3 or 4 that have some kind of mobile something in the works, and they all use a mobile app already on the university. It's not necessarily, for their access control. I think it was
Right.
BYU, I think, has a mobile access control app, but they don't use it. It's not turned on yet. They're just kind of waiting.
Right.
But it just seems like there's opportunity to kind of spread things out a little bit if needed. That's interesting. What about, so getting off mobile just for a second, and thinking about upgrades, what's something that a university could do? What's we use the term low-hanging fruit. Is there anything that's something that they could do within a year that's not as complicated as tearing out every reader and replacing them?
Yeah, they could. If they're interested in new technology, whether it's card or mobile, I mean, there's plenty of migration options. Is they can start small. So we talked to one university where they got a brand new building coming online in 2021, I believe. It's going to be the most state-of-the-art, gorgeous-looking building. They want it to represent the university well. They want it to be secure. They want it to be cool, convenient. So, if they have the right infrastructure in place from the hardware side, they could start using, let's just use mobile or say CIOS or whatever. If they have the right reader on the wall on those buildings, then they could, in theory, start using mobile on that one building and see it snowball and take off, or use CIOS and say they're a magstripe only campus. Well, you get CIOS cards with a magstripe on it, and that new building supports CIOS. Every other building still supports magstripe until those readers are eventually upgraded. Those type of things. Same thing with CIOS and PACS. If a university or DesFire and PACS, the university is all PACS. They want to do it in small batches. Now they just have to get cards that have CIOS and PACS, DesFire and PACS on them, and upgrade the reader infrastructure to support it.
I like that.
Oh,
I like the picture that you're painting with, if you took one project, like a new construction, and this is the kind of thing I'd love to see in the paper too, is, a use case or case study of new construction, but a reader that can accommodate legacy form factors or cards, or magstripe or whatever it is, but also takes the most up-to-date and mobile. So if it can take CIOS as a card or mobile, then give it a pilot opportunity there.
Yeah, no, I agree. We're actually, talking to folks about that. The pilot things, universities always like to try things, but you're right, especially when you look at it from a mobile side too. So say that university, that new building, you put mobile access on that building and the reader can support whatever legacy technology they're using. Well, all of a sudden, why is that building? Why can't we use our phones at that building?
Yeah.
Why can't that will snowball in itself. So I think there's really opportunity from HID side. Just in general, when it comes to that type of thing, offering the flexibility to say, you guys have a lot of options here.
Yeah, they could do a full overhaul, or they could start really small. And
and to be honest, there are not many schools that can do a complete overhaul.
I haven't talked to him yet.
It's so difficult. If you find one, let me know, because I'd be interested to hear that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm only talking to folks that you send over to me, your team, but in that process, I think they all wish they could, but not a single one of them yet has said, "Oh yeah, we got budget to just rip out everything." And we're looking forward to that, So
right.
Very interesting. All right. Just trying to go through questions and see if there's anything. I'm trying to get more specific to use sort of questions also. Hold on one second. All right. What do you see as the future of physical access control? You know, maybe 5 years, 10 years in the future.
Well, I mean, I think mobile. I think 5 to 10 years. I think mobile is going to be a lot bigger than it is now. I think we're just at the beginning stages of mobile. Not many campuses have mobile. My son is screaming in the background. Hold on one second.
Okay.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I think mobile and the convenience of mobile is going to be big in the next 5 to 10 years. Also, what HID has been working on, it's a few years out, but ultra wideband's coming, so where you can have the Star Trek type experience or the experience like you have with your cars, where you can keep your phones in your actual pocket, and as you approach a vehicle or a door, you know, it'll start to open if the phone's been provisioned properly. Those type of things are coming in the pipeline, are being talked about now. Technology is being worked on. You know, HID co-founded that Sierra Consortium with a number of other partners. You know, so that's some exciting stuff that's coming down the line. I think MagStripe is still going to be around because of just how much it's been used in North America. But it'll slowly get less and less use over time. But even in 5 to 10 years, I still believe on college campuses, you'll still see plenty of MagStripes.
How does, from a consumer point of view, when I go to the grocery store now, I don't ever use the MagStripe on my credit card. I only use the chip, right? So there's this sort of, on a consumer level, phasing out the MagStripe in all of my shopping endeavors. When does that sort of cross over to vendors on campuses? And
so
you know,
this comes to like the open versus closed loop system. So why that's happening in North America, and North America was the last to adopt it, is more tied to the EMV protocols from MasterCard and Visa, which, you know, when you use a credit card, you know, previously it was always backed up. Fraud was always taken care of. So while everyone knows your MagStripe data can be cloned, your credit card companies basically had your back if there was a fraudulent charge.
Yeah.
Well, once EMV was introduced in North America, they're basically saying if your terminals are not updated, the liability now shifts to that merchant. So again, this is when you're talking about credit cards. So, but at a university with a closed loop system, when you're talking about those integrators I mentioned before, Seaboard, they would have to adopt some type of changes to that. It's all closed loop. It's all tied to their software. Where they can use, you know, MagStripe or contactless or mobile and be just fine.
It's an interesting thought, just because, you know, even within sort of the outside of, you know, in the common world, we're losing that swiping muscle, you know, that we've had for quite a while, and we're getting more of the chip experience. And it was a thought that I had, that when does that kind of go away. And it's very interesting that because it's closed loop, it's sort of untouched. You know, it can sit there and continue to not mature, but, you know, get older.
Right.
Without much outside influence, unless somebody comes along and just says, you know, stop using this now. You know, there's no driver outside of the university or the vendors themselves, right? That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, because if you use, I'm not sure if you spoke to Clemson, but Clemson's a good example of this. They're the ones that they say within 5 years they're going to be all mobile. They were the first HID school to deploy the Student ID and Apple Wallet program. So they have a goal less than 5 years that MagStripe is going away. So working with an integrator, access control companies, HID, et cetera, if they have their entire hardware reader infrastructure upgraded, they won't support MagStripes anymore. So when you go to a terminal where they traditionally would swipe a MagStripe, they're going to be able to use their phone to do that, and everything's going to be tied and work together. So unless you have a university that is willing to do that or wants to do that, they could say, yeah, we're still going to accept MagStripe, unless, like your point earlier, unless the integrator says, no, we're moving away from MagStripe, you got to upgrade, you know, your terminals to support whether it's a contactless card for payment or a mobile platform for payment.
Now, going back to Clemson, is Clemson going to be 100% mobile, so there will be no more card option for students?
That's what they say.
Wow.
We'll see. They said within 5 years. So, but again, then you come back to policies on campus in universities. So, because everybody's been so used to how things have worked for however many years, but maybe they still require you to have a card for physical identification, so you could show a police officer on campus.
Right.
But it's not, there's no value, you know, it's not tied. You don't need a DesFire or CIOS card anymore. You just need a cheap little plastic card that has a picture on it. That's, you know, confirms that you are a university student now. You know, I think every university will have different policies and regulations around that. So will the card go away completely? I don't know. But as far as, you know, using a card to get in and out of buildings and food and paying for things, you know, their envision is mobile will be doing everything in 5 years. So
I would imagine the policy aspect of adopting mobile is a big deal, just because if you are issuing a card credential and you have a credential on your phone, what access do each of those have? You know, and
yes,
is it an all or nothing endeavor to go mobile, that you just, like Clemson, we're all in on mobile and we want to get rid of plastic? And
it's another big policy decision, because that comes up on all these NACU conferences that I've attended, and when I'm meeting with customers or other people, is that question comes up, because how do you manage that as a university? You're exactly right. Do you give them 2 credentials? Do you give them 3 credentials? Do you give them, you know, one where mobile only works on particular buildings? Do you go all in? Do you charge them? Because again, card costs, you know, you got to pay for a card. The mobile credential is not free. So all of a sudden, instead of paying X, Y, you know, whatever amount, you're paying an additional amount for mobile credentials. It's kind of all across the board. I've seen schools that say, no, we're going to charge both. We're going to give one or the other. We had one school, it's not an HID school that I'm familiar with, that basically said, no, we're going to trust our students. We're just going to give them, we're going to give them a card and a mobile. And, you know, some people think that's just crazy, that the students aren't going to abuse that. Like, okay, I'm going to, my buddy comes into town, I'm going to give him my card, and I have access on my phone, and you know, we can go anywhere type of thing. So it's truly going to be a policy and university decision on campus on how they want to handle that.
It sounds like when thinking about adopting mobile, that's probably one of the first things you need to think of is, you know, along with, you know, what is the legacy technology we have to continue to support, but how do we have multiple credentials to a single person, and how we deal with that. So that policy aspect is huge.
Yes, I would agree. And then what the cost of it is.
What so if a magstripe card is, you know, 10 cents and a kiosk card is $3 or $4, how much is a mobile credential?
It probably depends, but yeah, in that same range as a card.
So technically going, a student, do students typically have to pay for replacement of their lost card? I should ask
that. Is
the university person.
That is, yeah, yes and no. So usually a university gives the first card to the student for free, like when they enroll and those type of things.
Right.
I've seen replacements anywhere from $5 to $50 for replacement cards. You know, if a student loses it, type of thing. There's a school in New York that basically makes that hundreds of thousands of dollars off of replacement cards, and that funds their budget. Or not New York. I forget what state. But anyway, so again, different ways budgets are done. But to answer your question, yeah, it's across the board, especially when you change from a magstripe card, which you mentioned, say 20, 30 cents, to a contactless card where now it's $3, $4, $5 a card, and they're trying to, they're trying to figure out how to pay for it. And then now you add a mobile credential on top of that.
Yeah, the value of mobile really elevates when you think if you're 100% mobile, they can't really lose the credential. You know, and I'm serious about that in the sense of, obviously they don't want to lose their phone. If they do lose the phone, they're still not losing their credential, right? The credential is still, you just send them an email to their new phone, you know, if their phone got smashed or something like that.
Yeah.
So is there a replacement cost for a new phone credential? Because wouldn't it just be here, you know, reload the app and?
Yeah, not right now with the way subscription will be. But that goes back to what a university's been used to for however long is it's a different mindset and model now for subscription. So now they have, say, let's just use a 40,000 campus university or student university, where say they were buying, you know, maybe they printed 20 or 25,000 cards a year. Well, now all of a sudden, or maybe they're buying 25 or 40,000 cards every 2 years to accommodate their card production needs, because they're not going to print that many cards every year. Well, now with mobile, you're paying that annually every year. So, you know, it comes down to the different, different models. So some people might really like that. You know, they have a set price every year. They know what they're getting into. Others would say, well, this is actually more expensive, and now I have to pay it every year.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Because theoretically, even though you're not having to buy a new stock of card stock for replacements, you're having to pay an annual subscription. So the annual cost, repetitive annual cost is there, versus potentially one student could have the same credential for 4 years if they never lost it.
Yeah,
And
sure.
you're not, yeah. Where if that was a $5 card and the phone is $5 per year for the subscription, to $5 expense versus the $20 at a 4-year school potential.
Sure.
That's interesting.
I've even made a case to universities before. I mean, again, it's going to come down to policies and whether university allows things like this, but they want to have a card, they want to have mobile. So can they make mobile a revenue generator for them? You know, so you still give everyone a card, right? If they want mobile, which I don't know who wouldn't, from a student perspective, that would want a credential on the card. Okay, it costs you $10 and we'll give you a mobile credential. So now say you're paying $4 for the mobile credential and you charge them 10. So now you're making revenue off that, and funding programs, you know, however you want to. There's all different ways that they could look at it. It's just, you know, whether they really would allow that at a university campus. I don't know.
Yeah, I think as a parent, I would probably go crazy if I was paying $40,000 a year and my kid came home and said, I need $5 so I can put access control on my phone.
Right.
Like,
or yeah,
like,
why don't they just roll it into the tuition? Like no one would even notice. Like increase the tuition by $20, you know, and you're covered.
Well, luckily we don't have to solve that problem, but it is it's an interesting road to go down, and I definitely can see that the students are going to make a demand for it, and the universities are going to have to figure out some way of accommodating them. We're kind of way over. We're 20 minutes over, so I don't want to push too far out. Is there anything else? Anything we didn't talk about that maybe the questions you saw that we didn't touch you think is important?
No, I think we covered a lot. I mean, unless there's anything specific you had, you know.
Yeah.
This is all what, you know, I talk about all the time. So trying to make sure.
That's what I was really aiming for with you is you know, you work with end users, and you know, a lot of these questions that we didn't cover, I've covered a couple of times, whether it was Brett or Brandon. I love some of the kind of man on the street answers that you gave. I appreciate it very much. Great. Well, I'm going to hit pause here on the recording. You'll be able to hear me.